My wife is cheating on me. We had been dating for 6 years. I found out a few days before our wedding that she had been cheating on me with a colleague for over 6 months. My fiancée Jessica, 28F, and I, 34M, have known each other for about 6 years and have been engaged for 1. Our wedding is scheduled to take place in just 2 weeks, and I just witnessed something that is making me feel like I am making the biggest mistake of my life. Tonight, Jessica and I were taking a rare opportunity to relax at home. Jessica was in the kitchen making dinner while I was out back working on one of my projects. We live on acreage, and I am building a pagoda with a fire pit in the backyard that we were planning on using this fall. Anyway, as you do when you're doing heavy labor, I get thirsty and come back to the house to get a drink, where I see Jessica at the counter preparing dinner and talking on speakerphone. I recognize the voice instantly as my brother-in-law, Mike. Now this is where my brain gets totally twisted. Mike asks Jessica where her sister is, as he's been trying to get in contact with her and she's not answering texts. I hear Jessica say to him, "She just left here. She should be home in a half hour or so." It should be noted that Emily is Mike's wife of 5 years. I have to admit that I didn't immediately register what she had just said because I went into the kitchen, grabbed a glass, and asked Jessica what that was all about. She responds with, "Mike was looking for Emily." I see her texting and ask her what she is doing, and she says, "I'm texting Emily that Mike was looking for her." Anyway, I pour myself a drink, sit down, have a sip, and then finally my brain starts to work. First off, I heard Jessica tell Mike that Emily was here. Emily was not here, and the last time we saw her was yesterday when she came over to work on some last-minute wedding decoration stuff with Jessica. Secondly, why is she texting Emily and expecting a response when I distinctly heard Mike say that Emily wasn't answering her texts? Lastly, why the hell would she tell Mike that Emily should be back in 30 minutes unless she either knows where she is, then why did she lie, or she is right now in front of me texting her to tell her to get her butt home quickly? The only conclusion that I came up with is that Jessica is lying to Mike about the whereabouts of her sister, Mike's wife, and is probably warning Emily that Mike will expect her home in half an hour. I then spent probably the next 5 hours concocting various explanations for this behavior, some decent, some downright horrible, and playing them back in my head. I wanted really badly to ask Jessica about this, but at the same time, if what I think is going on, then I doubted I'd get a straight answer, which brings me to about an hour ago. I woke up around 100 a.m. to use the toilet, and I couldn't resist the urge to check Jessica's phone. We both know each other's pins, so this wasn't a difficult thing to do. Anyway, I grabbed the phone, retreated to the bathroom, unlocked it, and yep, it was exactly what I was afraid of, and probably what most of you are expecting. Jessica's sister Emily has been having an affair for about 6 months with a coworker, and Jessica has been helping Emily cover it up for almost that entire time. There are literally hundreds of texts between them, discussing the coworker, discussing sex stuff, really embarrassing things about my brother-in-law, and probably uncharitable stuff that makes my stomach churn. And here is my soon-to-be wife going along with all of it without batting an eye. I took some screenshots of the entire thread, put the phone back where I found it, and then retreated to my home office to find myself here typing it all out on Reddit, simply so I can avoid the primal scream that wants to come out of my mouth right now. I am totally 100 screwed, Reddit. I cannot marry Jessica. I just cannot do it. I can't think of any reasonable excuse she could offer me about assisting her sister in this affair and victimizing not only Mike, but their 2-year-old daughter as well. On the other hand, myself, my family, Jessica, and her family have all sunk an enormous amount of money into a wedding that is supposed to happen in around 2 weeks. There is no way we are getting any of that money back. On top of that, I feel like an absolute fool. Like, how did I not know this woman was like this? And what the hell am I going to do? I can't marry her. I absolutely cannot. However, I still want to. She's beautiful and fun and kind, and I thought we had a bright future ahead of us. She's never done anything wrong to me, but I just can't see her the same now. It's like a big black stain on an otherwise beautiful picture. I just don't know how the hell I got this so wrong, and I'm absolutely dreading doing what I know I need to do. I feel like I want to vomit or break something. Update, guys, you don't need to convince me to not marry Jessica. That's obvious. The wedding is off. I'm just trying to figure out my next steps and work up the nerve to do it. There's an incredible amount of pressure on me from everyone's expectations, but I'm not going to buckle under it. I just am not relishing having to deal with the fallout, and I'm more than a little angry that I'm in this situation. Update 2. It's 5 a.m. I have work in 3 hours, and I'm running off a couple of hours of sleep. I'm going to take a shower and head into work a little early to avoid Jessica and stew on this. Thanks to the supportive people here and a big raspberry to the jerks who keep saying I should figure out whatever good reason my soon-to-be ex-fiancé had for this garbage. Update 3, I got into work around 7. No one was in the office, so I decided to start pulling off the Band-Aid, and I called my brother. He lives in Australia, so he was still up after having just put his kids to bed. It was hard breaking the news to him about this because I know he has laid out a huge amount of money for flights for him and his family to come, but to his credit, as an older brother, he didn't mention it one time and just backed me up. He made a great point, too. He said, totally paraphrasing, "You work in a job where you have to deal with liars and scammers day in and day out. I don't blame you for wanting to have somewhere to go where this isn't a concern." He was totally right about that, and I get now why I am reacting so strongly to Jessica's participation in this deceit. He also had a great idea. He was going to take his family down to Florida to do some sightseeing and visit the parks. Well, now the kids will be accompanied by their uncle as well. It should be easy since we were going to honeymoon there as well, and we were planning on meeting them for a bit anyway. I'll just rebook everything to be closer to him and his family, and I'll offer Jessica's ticket to either my sister or another family member. I haven't had time to read everyone's comments, but I have answered a few. Right now, I'm just sort of making myself sick by drinking cup after cup of coffee and trying to distract myself until the day gets on enough where I can reach out to Mike. Update 4. Just did the morning stand-up. My stomach is doing flip-flops from drinking about 2 pots of coffee since I got in here so early, and I absolutely cannot focus and concentrate. I feel like I can't do anything really for my side until I tell Mike what I know, so I'm just going to take a sick day and drive over to his house and see if he's around. If not, I'll call him and track him down. Mike is a teacher who is on break right now, and Emily works a 9 to 5 like me, so odds are good this works out. Wish me luck, Reddit. Update 5 got to Mike's house a little after 1000 a.m. He had just put his daughter down for a nap, and we had a long, frankly brutal talk in the kitchen. Basically, he suspected this for a couple of months now, but Emily has been very good at covering her tracks, obviously with the assistance of Jessica and a couple of their mutual friends. I unfortunately do not have all 6 months of text messages, just a couple of dozen screenshots I sent to myself from Jessica's phone, but I gave him what I have and offered to help him however I could. I am a field analyst in the SIU department of a mid-sized insurer specializing in workers' compensation fraud, so I know a few things and a few people. Anyway, I am now working from my laptop in my almost brother-in-law's kitchen trying to salvage whatever I can. I'm going to have to talk to Jessica this evening and get the word out as fast as I can to my friends and family now that I know I won't screw Mike over. So far, I managed to rebook most of the honeymoon, although I had to haggle with the ticket because Jessica was flying under her maiden name, and our carrier has a surname rule for name changes. Anyway, they did allow me to cancel and get a partial refund and rebook to my sister, who will be accompanying her 2 brothers and nieces to Florida in a couple of weeks. I'm holding off on canceling the venues until after I talk to Jessica because I don't want to tip anyone off until Mike gets his chance to confront Emily. But I will absolutely be letting my family and friends know this afternoon sometime and beg them to keep it close. I'm basically in a frenzy right now, canceling stuff I can cancel, and I'm heading down to the bank in a few to open a new account and get my bills pay sorted out. The finances, some people have mentioned them, but it should be pretty good. The mortgage is in my name since we were not married and I have the bigger income, but Jessica did contribute about $20K versus my $60K towards the down payment. I will have to probably pay her out that money and some portion of the mortgage payments for the last 16 months, but it could be worse. P.S. How come so many are confused regarding brother and brother-in-law? Update 6, I'm going to go silent for a while. This post has already been circulating around TikTok and has gone way, way, way beyond what I thought it ever would when I was freaking out in the middle of the night. First off, I want to say something here. I do not hate Jessica. I don't approve of what she did. I frankly find it repulsive, and I'm shocked by uncovering how two-faced she can be and how she treats people, but I don't hate her. I'm just incredibly sad about everything, and the unscrewed part of my post is really the short time frame I have to work under. Basically, our relationship is in a state where I cannot get married to her, but we're supposed to get married in 2 weeks. Maybe if we had 2 months, or better yet, a year or so to work through this, my approach might be vastly different. But I don't have that luxury. I have to move now. There's just no way I can enter into marriage with the state our relationship is in now. So, I'm not going to. End of discussion, guys. Anyway, I will report back later tonight with how everything today went. Hopefully it will be less traumatic than I'm anticipating. Update 7. I have no idea how long a Reddit post can be, as I've never written such a long one before in my life, so I hope that this goes through. It's about 8:30 p.m. right now, and I'm writing this from my buddy's house. His name is Mark, and he's a former co-worker of mine that is also in the same field of work. As I mentioned in a previous update, I work as a field analyst in the SIU department of a decent-sized insurance carrier. For people who don't know what that is, I'm basically a private detective. My job is to investigate what we think might be fraudulent claims in regards to workers' compensation. Anyway, as I kind of hinted at, Mike asked for my help in finding out who the other guy was that Emily was cheating on him with. All we had to go on was a name. Let's call him Jake. The first thing I did was not some major amount of sleuthing. It was basically just going through LinkedIn, trying to find the guy through Emily's connections. But that brought up nothing, which I thought was strange. Mike had told me that Emily was supposed to go out for drinks tonight after work, and that she said she wouldn't be home until around 9 or 10. He didn't have to tell me what he suspected, since I pretty much understood right away. I told him that I would help him, but he needed to come with me. I then contacted my buddy Mark, explained the situation to him, and had him agree to meet us later in the day. The first thing we did was drive over to Mike's parents' house so that they could watch their granddaughter. I don't know what Mike told them as I waited in the car. After that, we went to Emily's place of work. It's one of those large commercial strip mall-type centers with all of these nondescript offices in a row in a large non-gated car park. We drove around until we found Emily's car, and then I had Mike unlock it with the second set of keys. I then gave Mike a voice-activated recorder and a GPS tracker to place in the car. Once done with that, we left, parked a bit down the street, and waited for my friend to arrive and for Emily to leave the business. Mark shows up about 20 minutes later, hops in the car with us, and around an hour after that, Emily comes out of her office with 2 of her girlfriends and a tall, younger-looking man with sandy blonde hair. They are obviously holding hands, and I'm like, "Damn, Emily, you're making it easy for me." I take a couple of pictures from the car and then wait for Emily to leave in hers, and I start tracking her. At first, I thought she might go right to a hotel or something, but she didn't. Instead, she drove to a reasonably nice bar and grill in a nice section of town and parked on the street. I drove by her as she was getting out of her car and entering the establishment, and then found my own parking spot and went over the plan. First, we sent Mark in since no one knew him. He had basically 2 jobs. First, try to get any compromising pictures he could of Emily and Jake, and second, to be my alibi. Mike and I waited in the car for around 20 minutes until I got the first in a series of text messages from Mark. They were pictures of Emily and Jake making out in front of their 2 female co-workers. Mike's suspicions were right. They were helping Emily hide the affair from him. He was obviously very upset and angry. Evidently, one of the co-workers is married, and as a couple, they are good friends with Mike and Emily, both of them having toddlers around the same age. I asked Mike if that's enough for him, but he says he still really wants to know who this guy is. I try to tell him that we can find out later, but he's practically begging me at this point, so I tell him to wait, text Mark that I'm coming in, and then enter the bar myself. The first thing I see is Emily and her crew laughing and drinking at one of those tall, round tables near the front window. As I enter, I stop for a moment, pretend to be surprised, and then call out to Emily. "Emily! Hi! What are you doing here?" She's obviously shocked to see me, and everyone around her tenses up immediately. Emily quickly introduces me as her sister's fiancé and says that we are getting married in 2 weeks. There are a lot of congratulations from everyone. I thank them and then stick out my hand to the blonde guy and introduce myself with my full name, hoping that he'll respond in kind. He does, and I'm a bit taken aback. He's not named Jake. I introduce myself to everyone else and then tell Emily that I'm here to meet a co-worker. I wave to Mark and then excuse myself. Once I get over to Mark, I tell him the guy's name, and we both whip out our phones and go to work. It doesn't take long for us to find him. He's got social media profiles and a couple of court case judgments against him. Everything sort of falls into place when we find out that Jake is his middle name. At this point, I'm basically just grateful that Emily isn't cheating on Mike with two different coworkers. It turns out that Jake is 26, married, and has a 1-year-old daughter. This just keeps getting better, or worse. Anyway, I text Mike the guy's name, and I decide I want to push my luck and tell him to wait a few more minutes. Basically, I'm playing babysitter here at the bar. I'm totally visible to Emily and her crew. I can see out of the corner of my eye that no one is particularly happy about this, and my presence is really ruining the night. This is good. I let this go on for about 10 minutes and then tell Mike to text Emily that he's spending the night at his parents' house with their daughter. It doesn't take long after that until I catch Emily taking out her phone, showing it to Jake, and then everyone deciding to pack up. Emily comes over to me, says goodnight, and asks me if Jessica and I want to come over for dinner this weekend. I smile and say that sounds like a great idea and wish her and her coworkers a good night. Mark and I wait for them to leave, then pay our bill and hurry back to the waiting Mike. There's a bit of hesitation here because we don't know exactly what Emily was going to do. I half assumed she might have already booked a hotel room and was heading there, which would have made everything a lot more complicated and limited what I could do. But it turns out that tonight was probably meant to be just drinks at the bar, and it wasn't until Mike decided to spend the night at his parents' that it turned into something more. Emily made a beeline for home, and we followed behind her, way out of sight, and parked down the street. It didn't take long after that until another car pulled into Mike's driveway, and we saw Jake get out, go up to the door, knock, and be greeted by Emily. They went inside together. Now, at this point, it's about 7:30, and I have my own stuff to do tonight, and I think that as a friend, I've done pretty much all I can do for Mike, and he can handle the rest himself. I mean, I feel bad for the guy, definitely, but I don't want to get any more involved in this drama than I already am, and being the wingman for him while he confronts his cheating wife is a bit much for me considering my situation. Mike says it's fine, that he'll do the rest of it himself. Guess he's more of a man than you thought, Emily. He goes to Emily's car, retrieves my gear, and we bid each other goodbye. That was almost 2 hours ago. I did get one text message from Mike saying it was done and he was going to his parents' house for real this time, but my phone hasn't been blowing up, so I don't know what's been going on with Emily, and I've been at Mark's since then. I think that basically concludes my part in Mike's story. If he was smart and listened to my advice, he was recording with his phone when he entered the house. I'll find out later. Anyway, my biggest priority now is to head home and tell Jessica that the wedding is off. She's almost 100 going to take it badly. There's no way she won't. But like I said, I just can't get married to her right now. I don't know what the future holds for us or if we will be done with each other or not, but definitely we are not getting married anytime soon. Also, for people who keep saying, "Why didn't you talk to her first? Why didn't you confront her?" I have to say, are you people stupid? She stone-cold lied in front of me to her brother-in-law that she has known for about 10 years and purportedly thinks is a really great husband and father. Maybe you are naive enough to think that someone can lie that coldly to someone they are supposed to care about and then tell you the truth, but I'm not wired that way. Until that moment, I never had cause to ever second-guess Jessica or not trust her, but she was literally untrustworthy in front of my face, and I'm supposed to let it slide or expect her to be honest to me. I guess you don't know what it's like to have your entire view of someone shift in an instant. It's disorienting and frankly a bit panic-inducing. I'm actually impressed I kept my head and followed my instincts instead of pressing her right away because it led me to the truth. It would have been ridiculously easy for her to lie to me and then delete those text messages. And if she had done that, then I would never have read the horrible things she said, never seen how she can be so duplicitous and two-faced, and never realized how little I actually knew about her. I'm going home to talk to Jessica. I'll update later to let everyone know what the final verdict is. Don't expect it to be a good one. Update 8. Well, I had the talk with Jessica last night. It was pretty insane. I'm honestly burned out and still exhausted, even though I took another sick day and slept in until almost 4:11. Sleep deficit is real. I know everyone is thirsty for updates, but as much as it's therapy for me to write them, I am just absolutely drained, and as you may have noticed, I don't know how to be short. Just call it a character trait for my profession and the endless amount of minutia-filled reports I've written. I will give the TLDR, and I promise to do a proper update later. Long story short, I came home to talk to Jessica about canceling the wedding and found her comforting Emily on the couch. I almost turned around and walked out, but didn't. Words were exchanged, tears were had, people got really angry, and the cops were called. I collapsed and slept for like 10 hours, and my phone is practically glowing from the heat of a bajillion unread messages and missed calls. If it vibrates anymore, I'm going to take it to Emily's office and charge $10 a minute to sit on it. Stuff is really up in the air. I have a lot to do today. My family already knew what was going on by yesterday afternoon, but I need to contact some friends today and get a move on other things. I'm just going to answer a couple and then bug out for a few to get stuff done. First, I am not James Bond. I am the guy that follows around the disabled construction worker to a Zumba class or skydiving lesson. I've been doing it for about 5 years, and I'm pretty good at it. Nothing I did went beyond a 50 GPS you can buy from Amazon and a tiny bit of social engineering. You might be surprised how far social engineering can get you, but whatever. Second, I'm off the clock on the mysterious case of Mike and the Hobgoblin. Whatever Mike does with the info he has, including contacting the other wife, is on him. I'm not interjecting myself into this mess any more than I have. Mike is a good friend, but I have my own little world collapsing right now, and now that I don't have my moral indignation to distract me, it's becoming a bigger burden than I've been letting on. Third, I am not an aspiring screenwriter or novelist. I do, however, write a lot of reports. You have no idea. Most of my life is actually spent hunched over a laptop writing a report or transcribing statements. For every hour I spend doing field work, I probably spend 10 doing paperwork or research. Fourth, you are right that I was wrong to leave Mike to go it alone. I didn't have any fear, not even an iota, that Mike would do anything stupid, but I didn't properly take into account the risk to him. That's a personal failing of mine. It's not that I don't care, I just tend to estimate that other people handle things like I do, and hence, when Mike was doing something that I would do, I didn't question it like I should have. I know this is a problem of mine, and I'm working on it, but I am also not in the best place emotionally, so my EQ was low in the situation. Last, people saying, "You don't know the whole situation. What if Mike was an abuser? Yada, yada, yada. No, buddy, you don't know the whole situation. I do. I read 6 months of text messages. I know why Emily did what she did. I know how she feels about Mike. I know how my ex-fiancée played along with this. I'm just not sharing it because it's vile, but I know. And it played a big part in how I have acted in the last day and a half. Trust me, if Jessica had done something, anything, other than encouraging and egging on, we'd all probably not be here. But she did, so we are. Anyway, that's it for me. I will try to update again in the next few days with the whole fallout, but I'm probably going to be mostly off Reddit for now. Best of luck to everyone, and thank you to all the people backing me up. It meant a lot to me and helped keep me sane. Well, some semblance of sanity anyway. Update hi, it's me again. I want to thank everyone who has sent me kind messages and support here on Reddit and even on other platforms. This has really blown up, and frankly, it's totally bizarre to see my life plastered all over the internet, but it's also nice to see so many people seeming to be genuinely concerned for me. It helps a lot. At first, I had a bit of trepidation about how visible this became, like, what have I done? But since this past weekend, I decided to just roll with it. After all, the cat is already out of the bag, and I really believe I've done nothing wrong here, despite a small minority of commentators saying otherwise. I guess there is a lot to go over, and so much has happened. Most of it, if I'm honest, hasn't been that great. Well, it's actually been downright shitty, but I'll get to that. For people who are just following along, the link to my original post is here. I'm getting married in 2 weeks, and I'm totally screwed. First off, I left Mark's house pretty late that night. Jessica already knew I was out discussing business with him, although she had no idea that the business was actually her sister's affair. But still, it was getting to an unreasonable hour, mostly because I was trying to get up the nerve to go home and face her. After about 2 or 3 pep talks from Mark, I finally got off my keister and texted Jessica I was coming home and left in my car. As I said in the last update, I was pretty surprised when I got there because when I walked into the house, Emily was crying on the couch with Jessica. I hadn't seen Emily's car in the driveway when I came home, so this was probably the last thing I was expecting. I froze for a moment and almost turned around and left. This was not how I imagined this going down, and I knew that Emily's presence was going to make a bad situation a million times worse. Still, I had a timetable that I wanted to move on. I had friends I needed to notify and wedding preparations to cancel, and the proverbial clock was ticking in the back of my head. When I entered the room, both Jessica and Emily looked up at me in acknowledgement, but the tirade of accusations never came. I just stared back, raising my eyes in question. The moment passed, and Emily went back to crying, Jessica back to comforting, and I let it awkwardly hang in the air for half a minute while I thought. It seemed that Mike hadn't mentioned my assistance in the uncovering of Emily's affair. I decided to play dumb, not for Emily's sake, but because I didn't want to drop the hammer while she was here. So I took off my shoes and sat down in a chair. Emily, who still didn't acknowledge me, was apparently crying too hard to realize what that implied. Now, I'm an empathetic person, but I have to admit at this moment my nerves were steel, and I was probably the least sympathetic person you could imagine. Still, I did not want to hurt her further. Not that I could, but I did want to know what was going on. The talk I had with Jessica on the way home was the reason I knew I was going to end things with her, but Emily's presence was giving me a bit of doubt, and it might have been a blessing. This wasn't how I wanted to go about things. As I said before, Mike is a friend I am very disappointed in and likely won't ever look at the same way again, but still a friend. I did not want to tip Emily off to his plans, so instead of speaking to Jessica, I addressed Emily. "What happened, Emily?" I asked. Jessica, to my surprise, did not answer for her. Instead, she looked up at me as if in shock and disgust. It was quite a sobering reaction, honestly. "Mike!" she sobbed. "Mike left me. He said it was over." "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that," I replied, completely insincerely. "Did he say why?" Emily sniffed and looked up at me. She stuttered, but Jessica finished for her. "He found out about her and Jake," Jessica said. Emily's head immediately turned to Jessica, her eyes wide and her jaw dropped. "You told him?" she demanded, her voice becoming shrill. "You told him about Jake?" I held my hand up, trying to hide the slight smile that tugged at the corner of my mouth. Emily turned back to me, and I just sat there, dumbfounded. I couldn't believe it. She still thought this was some huge revelation. "No," Jessica said softly, "I didn't tell him. He already knew. He asked me to watch his car, and then he came in." She shook her head and dropped it back into her hands, crying again. I was taken aback. "How did he find out?" Emily asked, her eyes now wide with fear. "I don't know," Jessica said quietly. "But he must have known for a while. He was calm, too calm, like he had already accepted it." "I can't believe this," Emily said, her voice rising again. "I can't believe you didn't tell me." Jessica sighed. "Emily, what was I supposed to do? Lie to him?" "Yes, you were supposed to protect me," she yelled, standing up. I took a deep breath and decided it was time to intervene. "Emily, please," I said calmly. "This isn't helping." She turned to me, her eyes filled with anger and pain. "And what about you? Are you going to tell me you had nothing to do with this?" I shook my head. "No, I had nothing to do with this. But I'm not going to stand here and listen to you blame Jessica for something you did." Emily glared at me for a moment before storming out of the room. Jessica looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. "I can't believe this is happening," she said softly. I nodded, feeling a pang of guilt. "I know, but we need to talk." She wiped her eyes and nodded. "I know." We spent the next few hours talking, crying, and trying to make sense of everything. In the end, I knew what I had to do. The wedding was off. There was no way I could marry Jessica after everything that had happened. It was the hardest decision I had ever made, but I knew it was the right one. In the days that followed, I contacted friends and family, canceled wedding preparations, and tried to piece my life back together. It wasn't easy, and I knew it would take a long time to heal, but I also knew that I couldn't go through with a marriage built on lies and deceit. I hope that one day I'll be able to look back on this experience and see it as a learning opportunity. For now, I'm just trying to take it one day at a time and move forward with my life. Thank you to everyone who has supported me through this difficult time. Your kindness and understanding have meant more to me than you'll ever know.